Hey guys, Mix here, and in today's video we are back with the 1974 MGB. So in last video with this thing, we got it to actually run correctly. So if you guys don't know already, quick run through. I picked this thing up, had horrible rod knock, lots of smoke, something's knocking up here bad. Does not sound good. First we tried a DIY fix, didn't work. Well, it worked for like 10 seconds, but didn't really work, which I kind of expected. And then we pulled out the entire engine, rebuilt it from the ground up, put it back in, got it running, ran good for like a little bit, and then it wasn't running good at all. After several attempts of trying to figure out what could be possibly wrong, we found the intake gasket was ripped, so we went ahead and fixed that. On the distributor, the points were corroded, so we went ahead and fixed that also. So now, as you guys saw in last video, we got it to actually rev up, idle really good. We got the carburetor dialed in. So now we need to focus on what makes this thing drive and actually move and be safe on the road. And along with also doing some engine maintenance since we've done the rebuild. If there's any break-in, which I'm expecting there will be, I definitely want to get some fresh oil in there. So I went ahead, picked up a new filter, some 2050, which is what this engine takes, and just some oil treatment, which is why I really got it, zinc. Zinc is very good for these older engines with like flat tapping cams and everything like that. It helps protect against wear, and it's just really good. I run it in my Corvette also. And then probably maybe after like 1 or 2 more oil changes, I'm probably going to end up running Valvoline VR1 because that's very high in zinc and specifically made for these engines. But as this engine's breaking in, I'm not going to go ahead and dump a ton of money on stuff. I'm just going to get the basics, which will be fine. And then there's a couple other things that we'll get to along with the video. I want to weld something and just stuff like that. Well, let's just begin now. What I'm going to do is start off with the oil change really quick, just get that taken care of, and then we'll go ahead and pull off the wheels, which I'm super nervous for, and I'll tell you guys why once we get to that. So with that being said, let's go ahead and fire this thing up, get the engine just a little bit warm so the oil comes out nicely because it is a little bit cold out today. Get this oil drained, check it out, see what it looks like, and then get this oil filter out, which I'm not excited for because it's like a top mount, so it's probably just going to dump out completely as I loosen it, but we'll see. So that's enough chit chat, let's get to work. So this will be about a 4 or 5 day cold start. Ooh, that battery's dead. Dang. This cold weather's killing batteries. Yeah. Well, gonna hook this thing up and then we'll try again. So while the battery's charging, we might as well be a little bit proactive and do the other stuff first, and then once the engine can actually fire up. What I want to do now is jack up the front end of this car and take off the front wheels and look at these brake calipers. And I also want to check the bearings, make sure that there's not a ton of up and down play. Just give this a once over. I mean, the rotors, not sure how well you're going to be able to see it. I mean, you'll see it once the wheel's off. I mean, they're very rusted right now, but that's just from sitting. Once they're used, all that rust will be worn away. But I want to check the pads, and we'll go ahead and actually bleed the brakes too while we're at it. I did put fluid in when I first got it, and it hasn't leaked out yet, so that's a good thing. But I have pumped up the pedals, and they have gotten pressure, but they do fade away. So there's probably some air in there, obviously. But you might be wondering why I said I've been a little bit nervous, and that is because these have the one center lock wheel that you just knock off. And if we come to the trunk, if you guys don't know already, this has subwoofers. I don't know why. This is what you use to take off the wheels. So that is pretty hilarious. And I tried like looking up like torque specs and stuff like that, but everything I've seen online, people just give them a couple whacks with the hammer when they're tightening them and call it a day. So we'll just go ahead and do that, and we'll just see how it goes. So let's go ahead and get to work. Alright, so before I go ahead and completely remove the wheels, I just wanted to loosen them just a little bit while the wheels were still in contact with the ground. But I want to feel for up and down movement on the wheel, and this thing feels pretty tight, which is good. Alright, this thing feels pretty good. Let's check the other side. This one feels about the same, maybe just like a tiny bit of movement. But you can hear those rotors all built up with rust and everything, so let's go ahead and get these wheels off and check out these calipers a little bit. So these should have grease in it Yes, they do. Could probably use a little bit more. Oh, okay, pretty easy. Well, here's a closer look at the inside, and this is a pretty neat design, how the wheels actually mesh with those splines that are on the hub itself. That's actually pretty cool, and you can see how greased up it is. I'm probably gonna put some more grease on there. So those both have a ton of life, which is good to see. I mean, those pads are chunky. Looking at this rotor, I mean, there's no way of telling without really driving it or having the right machinery to see if it's really warped or not. But, I mean, first glance, you think that this thing is worn down to nothing with how thin it is. But this actually seems to be like standard thickness on MGs, which is pretty dang thin. I mean, this is like a dinner plate. See if there's any play in there. That feels pretty tight. This actually looks fairly new up here. Brake line isn't super hard. This wheel checks out. So before I go ahead and crack these bleeders loose, I want to go ahead and just spray a little bit of like Crow oil on the threads, because we know it's been at least over a decade since these has moved, so definitely don't want to round them out or strip them or anything like that. Alright, so this calls for .3 brake fluid, which we have, but I want to go ahead and top it off before we go ahead and start bleeding. You can see that it's split, one side for the front, one side for the rear. The rear has drum brakes on it. I'm not going to go ahead and check them. I'll let the drive go ahead and test them for me. Alright, then we'll go ahead and check the clutch reservoir as well, and we're probably going to end up bleeding this one as well. Alright, so now that we know that the masters are both full, I'm going to go ahead and begin. So I am going to start with the passenger side brake, and then once I get this one all good and no more air coming out, I'm going to go over to the driver's side and finish that one up. And then once I'm done with that, I'm going to go ahead and do the clutch as well. And the bleeder for that is right up there. And once we're all good here, throw it back on the wheels, and I'm also going to re-grease all of this. So we got both wheels back onto the car, and pretty tight, I'd say. But once it's on the ground, we could go ahead and just give it a last snug, but everything is looking good. Alright, so I got my welder out right now, and I just want to go ahead and do something under the car quick. Right here where the two exhausts meet, I want to go ahead and just throw a couple tack welds on there, just because it's like a super tight fitting exhaust. And I've already had this pop off, like just getting in and out of the car. This is in as much as it'll go on this one, and this is like really as tight as it'll go. So I think just throwing a couple tacks on there won't really hurt anything. But I'm not gonna go ahead and like weld the whole thing, because if we do need to remove it, I wanna be able to cut the tacks off. So the battery's been charging up for quite a while now, so I think we're good to fire up this engine now and get the oil warm. I'm definitely really curious to see how this oil looks. Right up. Wow. Just let it get a little bit warm. Wow, that thing sounds so good. I feel like this oil is going to have a lot of fuel in it, just because how rich it used to run before we got everything all figured out. But let's just see. So we got the oil draining now, and so far, it doesn't look too bad. Alright, so this thing is still pouring out strong, and this is a 7-quart oil pan. It's happened last time too, before we did the rebuild, but it looks like it's finally starting to slow down now, right at the brim of this. And I'm pretty sure this engine only takes like 5 quarts, so if there was 2 quarts of fuel in there, definitely good that we're changing this out. I got the oil pan out from under the car very carefully. Here's a closer look at everything, and I mean, this oil pan was dirty to begin with, but I mean, metal flaking wise, it looks pretty average for, I mean, an engine that has brand new everything internals. I know it could look pretty alarming, but it's actually kind of a good thing that it has this. It shows that the engine is breaking in properly, and plus I think this oil wasn't even that great with all that fuel. I mean, it definitely has fuel in it. I think it was just flooding out, and then after I just let it sit after it wouldn't start, it would just seep down. But I don't see any like coolant or anything like that. It doesn't look like a milkshake, so we know our head gasket's sealed well. So I'm just gonna go ahead and transfer that into this. And then I didn't pull out the oil filter yet because I want a nice clean pan underneath there, but I'm very nervous to pull that out. I got the pan drained and underneath. So now, the moment I've been dreading, if I can actually take this off. Wow, I have that on there tight. Oh, there we go. Huh. There's actually no leak. Oh, yep, there is a leak. Oh boy. Alright, so let's take a closer look at this thing. You can see how much I had to clamp it down to get it out. No metal chunks, so that's good. So I got the new filter right here, and I'm just gonna go ahead and screw it back on. You can see just how brilliant of an idea that is. Just all that oil sitting in there. Alright, so the car is on the ground, as you can see. I'm going to go ahead and fire it up once again. Just let it run for a sec. Then I'm just going to check the oil once it's ran through the engine. Oh yeah. No leaks by the filter. Nothing underneath. We got great oil pressure, like 75 pounds. Let's go ahead and feel that brake pedal. Oh, what? That's insane. That is really, really good. Test that clutch too. Let's put it in gear. Nice. Let's make sure it engages. Yep. Nice. That is perfect oil level. This thing, I believe, is ready for the road. So guys, we got done a ton of stuff that I just really wanted to get done, from just a simple oil change to welding the exhaust. I am absolutely pumped on how this thing is running and sounding. But we'll see how she drives. I mean, the brakes feel amazing. The pedal is rock solid. And like we saw before, I mean, the steering components and just like the bearings and everything, they look good and re-greased also. So I definitely think that one of the next videos with this thing could be the first drive. So definitely stay tuned for that. Like I said before, stay tuned for the first drive video with this thing. As long as everything goes to plans, I believe this thing should be more than ready to go. But anyway guys, with that being said, I'm going to be ending off this video here. Follow my social medias, they'll be on the outro of this video. Instagram and Snapchat I use the most. But thanks for watching. Please subscribe, like, comment, tell your friends about the channel.